All right, y'all. Welcome back. This is episode 2 of Beyond Control, Freedom with Food, Exercise, and Athletic Performance. I'm so glad that you guys are back with me today, and I cannot thank you enough for tuning into our first episode. Your feedback and support really does mean the world, so seriously, keep bringing it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss another episode. I just love getting to hang out with all of you a little bit more, and I'm excited to keep doing this. So today, I wanted to talk to you about why aesthetic goals suck. Seriously, I seriously believe that. And I am 100% somebody that cares about how they look. Often I care too much. I freak out about my tummy rolls all the time, cellulite, what might happen if I don't work out for extended periods of time. I've come to the conclusion that I will never not care, but I have figured out how to be less neurotic about it and how to live more in line with my values. See, for me, it's not that caring about my appearance is bad. It's that I can get so wrapped up in it that I start to become somebody that I don't like. And I want people in my life to show up. I want people in my life to share, and I want them to connect. And I want to be that type of person for my friends as well. Those just are where my values sit. And if I start to stray too far from that, I start to feel icky and just unaligned. Right. So I just think it's all too easy to get caught up in thinking that if we appear a certain way that we will be happy or liked or desired. And of course, it's easy to think that, right? The messaging that is true is put in front of us every single day. And it has been for the most of our lives. We were born into a world that valued appearance in certain ways. And before we could even think for ourselves, I think other people started forming us. So I also want to say that I know I speak from a place of privilege when I talk about my experience with appearance. Right. I am a long-legged, cis, white female with blonde hair and blue eyes. I cannot pretend to know the experience of people whose appearance is less accepted by society at large, be that their skin color, their size, whatever else it might be. I'm not going to sit here and tell you to just be happy with you because the only experience I know is my own. And I don't want it to come across like, if you just focus on other things, you'll be fine. We all have different experiences, and I want to honor that. What I do believe I can speak to is why aesthetic goals suck, no matter what body you're in. And here's why. Number one, the standards change all the time. I remember learning in medieval history, I think in like 6th grade, that women used to be seen as desirable when they were plump because it meant they were rich enough to eat. So the more curves you had, essentially the more body fat you had, the better. Whereas thin women were not desirable because they were poor. I remember rolling my eyes back then, and at the time I was a chubby middle schooler with a muffin top, and all my friends had already leaned out. And at 12 years old, I was starting to wish that I had been born in a different era. Let's just look at things from the 1900s through today. Take it a little bit more recently, right? 1910s, hourglass figure with a cinched waist was super in, aka the Gibson girl. So women wanted to have full chests, full hips, and tiny waists. We see corsets during this period of time that were very popular throughout society. Move on to the 1920s, thin with no curves starts to be in. Think about the straight flapper dresses, thin arms, small chests, and thinner hips were really in fashion. In the 1930s, we go back to more curves. Not quite as full as the 1910s, but a softer shoulder, larger bust. This might have been due to the invention of a new bra cup size, probably invented by a man. But those things start to return a little bit in the 30s. Move on to the 40s. We have a war. So now stronger, taller, more athletic women are desirable. Women wanted military shoulders. Think about Naomi Parker in the That We Can Do It poster, right? A little bit stronger figure is what people start to think for. In the 1950s, we're back to curves. This is where we see the pinup model emerge. Larger breasts were desired. We see plastic surgery become more popular. Doctors were experimenting with sponges at this point in time for breast augmentation. So already every 10 years, we have a little bit of a back and forth. Move on to the 1960s. This is Twiggy's era. So super thin, no curves. 1970s, thin is still in with flat tummies and slim hips, but not quite as thin, and breast augmentation continues to evolve for women. In the 1980s, tall and slim are still desirable characteristics, but athletic is also really at large during these years, right? We see fitness models and fitness fanatics start to take over. I don't know if you remember all of those lovely jazzercise videos, or, you know, when you dress up as an 80s person for like Halloween or something, that's likely what you are feeding into. And then we have the 1990s and we're back to super thin, right? This is the era of heroin chic, which why the hell we didn't see that as a problem when the name appeared, I'm not really sure. But that was the 90s. Hip bones, low-rise jeans. 2000s, we go to still slim, but not quite as sickly. Victoria's Secret fashion models really kind of ruled the scene during the 2000s. And then 2010, Kim Kardashian hits the scene. So now we've come back around to hourglass figures and full curves. So every 10 years, the standards have changed, right? It's important to note that we are talking about mainstream America in these trends, and pretty much all of these idolized figures belonged to white women. But the point is that the ideal changes every 10 years. So what the hell is the point of chasing whatever is aesthetically in if it's just going to shift on you anyway? The system has set you up for failure, right? And the health industry makes a killing between fad diets, workouts to grow certain curves, surgeries, injections, you name it. There's never going to just be a standard that sticks. It's not going to happen. We have history to prove it. I'm not saying that you can't care about how you look, but think for a minute about where your desired look is coming from. Does it have anything to do, anything at all to do with how you feel internally about yourself and your body? Or are your strings being pulled by somebody else? Mostly the media, right? We see these photos all the time, especially with the evolution of social media and filters, and nothing seems to be real anymore. It always seems to change, right? I'm not immune to this. I've thought about lash extensions and tried to make my body fit into a box that it does not belong in. And if you really do want those lash extensions for you, I say go for it. I'm all about it. I am all about loving the skin that you're in. But I really think it's important to pay attention to how much energy you're spending trying to fit certain ideals, and ask yourself if that energy is worth it and where that ideal is even coming from. Does it actually align with you and your values? The people that are going to love you are going to love you anyway, with or without an ideal aesthetic, with or without whatever's in fashion to do to your face. And you don't need anyone else. I've tried it. I've been there. It didn't get me friends. It didn't get me love. Okay. Point number 2, you never really arrive. This kind of is an extension of point number 1, which is that the standards change. But what I mean here is that even if you do lean out, even if you do get that ideal aesthetic, you could still be leaner. You could still be curvier in the right places. You could still not have the mole on your face that you were born with. Even when you've got 21-inch biceps or a booty worth of a social media influencer, you're going to have imperfections. We are human. We are not all supposed to look exactly the same. And I think the sad part about you never really arrive is that the feedback is always negative. I lost another inch around my waist. Great, but I still have cellulite and armpit flab, or I still have another couple inches to go. We are constantly measuring the negatives when we're only focused on aesthetic goals. And it's exhausting. You will never feel like enough because you'll never feel like enough because we put aesthetic standards out of reach, and people do that on purpose, right? So you'll buy into the next diet. So you'll buy only organic. So you'll hire the trainer who promises you that body. Yes, I am a personal trainer, and I don't think all of the industry is great. I think oftentimes the industry is focusing on the wrong things or just telling people honestly what they want to hear, because clients come to us saying, my goal is to lose 20 pounds. And we say, great, I'll get you there because we need you as a client. But what we should probably be asking is, why do you need to lose the 20 pounds? What's going on? What's the motivation there? Is it really even about the 20 pounds? Is that even what we should actually be focused on? So aesthetic goals suck, but that doesn't mean saying, well, okay, I guess I'll just lay around and never do anything again and just see what happens. I am in the fitness industry. I do care about your health. And I believe that focusing on performance will, number one, sure as hell keep you healthier. And two, likely give you a physique that you're happy with, without all the scrutiny of that being the driver. Multiple things are going to happen if you focus on performance, but here are a couple of big ones. One, it still means that you could always be better, just like with physique, but now you're constantly winning. Instead of constantly focusing on the negative, you're going to start focusing on the positive things, right? If I'm going to train for performance, I'm going to start where I am and take steps. Each time I can lift heavier or run faster, it is a positive reinforcement. Say I want to back squat 250 pounds. I don't start there. I start at like 85 pounds. And then each week I just try to add 5. And I guarantee you, if I'm winning at that, it's going to be motivation to keep going. I also guarantee you, I'm going to like the way my butt looks at the end. Each week I have to show up and grind out reps. Each week I feel good for showing up. Not bad because I had to miss out on that piece of cake at my friend's birthday, or bad because I didn't miss out on the piece of cake and now my body weight isn't down from last week, right? It's always positive reinforcement. Number 2, focusing on performance means more happy hormones. We know that exercise produces endorphins and serotonin, among other hormones that make us feel mentally healthy. So if we are focusing on performance and we're focusing on the movement, we're going to produce more of that. You're going to feel lighter. You're going to feel mentally healthier in your life. Number 3, and this is a big one. Focusing on performance gives us a much better chance of actually taking care of ourselves. Good athletic performance requires proper rest, proper fuel, right? Often chasing aesthetic goals can just mean restriction, running on caffeine, poor sleep hygiene, hormonal dysfunction, irritability. The list goes on, okay? If I really want to perform well though, then I need to treat myself like an athlete. And athletes don't trash their bodies. Number 4, another big one, discovering what you can do is empowering. Seeing your body do things that you never thought you were capable of, seeing your composition change due to consistent training towards an athletic pursuit, that's one of the coolest things to experience, hands down. And it sure as shit helps you stress less over the tiny bit of cellulite on your thighs. All right, so that's my spiel for today. I've learned from experience how impactful performance goals are. They are absolutely perspective shifting. They're positive. They work. I'm going to challenge you to set some for yourself today. And it could be anything. It could be a hike you want to do that you feel is out of reach. It could be to do a push-up. There are no wrong answers. And if you want some help setting some of those, I'm always happy to chat. You can find me on Instagram at KDK Katie.k.training. And I'm always happy to have a conversation. I love talking about that stuff with you guys. Again, be sure to like, follow, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss out on any tips or fun conversations. And thank you all for being here. I'll see you in the next one.